They say everyone has a price. Mine was $25,000 and a lie I never thought I could sell. My name is Jamie Castellano, and 6 months ago, I was barely making rent working double shifts at a downtown coffee shop while trying to finish my graphic design degree. Now, I'm sitting in a penthouse overlooking the city, wearing clothes that cost more than my car, pretending to be in love with a man who was supposed to be just a paycheck. But here's the thing about pretending. Sometimes the line between fake and real gets so blurred, you can't remember which side your heart is actually on. This is how it happened. This is how I fell. The eviction notice was bright pink, impossible to ignore against my apartment door. 30 days. That's all I had before my entire life got packed into boxes and dumped on the street. I stood there in the hallway, still wearing my apron that smelled like espresso and broken dreams, and felt something inside me crack. 3 years of school, countless all-nighters, a portfolio I was proud of, and none of it mattered if I couldn't afford to stay in the city long enough to graduate. Rough day. I turned to see Mrs. Chen from 4B, her arms full of grocery bags. Something like that, I managed, helping her with her door. "You're a good boy, Jamie," she said, patting my arm. "Don't let this city break you. Sometimes opportunities come from the strangest places." I wish I'd known how right she was. That night my best friend Marcus called. "You sitting down?" I'm lying on my floor questioning my life choices. Does that count? Perfect position for what I'm about to tell you. His voice had that mischievous edge that usually meant trouble. "Remember how I freelance for that event planning company, the one that does all those fancy corporate parties? The one where you met that guy who owns the yacht?" Different yacht guy, but yes. Listen, they have a client. Wealthy, like obscenely wealthy. Tech sector, family, money, the works. He needs someone for a particular arrangement. I sat up. "Marcus, if this is some sugar daddy thing." "Let me finish. He needs a fake boyfriend. 3 months, maybe 4. His family is old money, traditional, and apparently they've been pressuring him about settling down. There's some big inheritance thing tied to relationship stability or whatever. He just needs someone to show up to family events, play the part, be convincing." That sounds insane. That sounds like $25,000. The number hit me like cold water. What? 25 grand, Jamie, plus expenses. He'll cover everything. Clothes, travel, the whole 9 yards. All you have to do is smile, hold hands at dinner parties, and convince his family you're madly in love. I thought about the pink notice, the student loans, the dreams I was watching circle the drain. Why doesn't he just date someone real? Does it matter? The offer is legitimate. I've met the guy. He's not a creep, I promise. Actually, Marcus paused. "He's kind of your type, if I'm being honest." "I don't have a type." "Everyone has a type. Yours is emotionally unavailable overachievers with good bone structure." That's disturbingly accurate. "So, are you interested? I can set up a meeting." I lay back down, staring at my ceiling with its water stain that looked like a question mark. The universe had a sick sense of humor. "Set it up," I heard myself say. The restaurant was the kind of place where the menu didn't have prices, which meant I definitely couldn't afford anything on it. I'd borrowed Marcus's one good blazer, paired it with my least worn jeans, and hoped I looked more casually confident than clearly out of my depth. Adrian Wolfe was already seated when I arrived. My first thought was that Marcus had undersold him. My second thought was that I was in serious trouble. He was maybe 30, with dark hair that had a distinguished touch of silver at the temples, sharp cheekbones, and eyes the color of stormy seas. He wore a charcoal suit like it was a second skin, and when he stood to greet me, I noticed he was tall, at least 6'1" to my 5'10". Jamie Castellano. His voice was smooth, controlled, a businessman's voice. "That's me." I shook his hand, firm grip, warm palm, professional. Thank you for meeting me. I'm Adrian Wolfe. Please sit. We settled into our seats, and for a moment he just studied me. Not in a creepy way, more like he was solving a complex equation and I was one of the variables. Marcus spoke highly of you, he said finally. Marcus tends to exaggerate. He said you were honest. That's not an exaggeration I'm concerned about. Adrian folded his hands on the table. I assume he explained the situation. The broad strokes. You need a fake boyfriend, I need money. But I think we should probably discuss the fine print. Something flickered in his eyes, approval maybe. Direct. I appreciate that. He leaned back. Here's the situation. My family believes relationships demonstrate stability and maturity. My grandfather's will stipulates that to access certain trust funds and board positions, I need to prove I'm in a committed relationship. I'm 31 years old and I've spent the last decade building my company. I don't have time for the complications of an actual relationship. So you're buying one instead. I'm hiring someone to fulfill a role, he corrected. Think of it as performance art. You play the part of my devoted boyfriend at family gatherings, company events, the occasional photo opportunity. In exchange, you receive $25,000 upon successful completion of the contract term. Which is how long? 3 months minimum, potentially extending to 6 depending on family dynamics. I'll pay you half up front, half upon completion. All expenses covered, wardrobe, travel, accommodations when needed. I did the math in my head. 25,000 would cover my rent, my loans, maybe even let me quit one of my jobs and actually focus on school. What exactly would I have to do? Attend events as my partner. Respond to my family's questions believably. Display appropriate affection in public, hand-holding, the occasional kiss if necessary. Nothing beyond what a real couple would do in front of family. And in private. In private, we maintain professional boundaries. This is a business arrangement, Jamie. I'm not interested in complications. The way he said it, so cool, so certain, should have been reassuring. Instead, it felt like a challenge. I need to think about it, I said. Adrian slid a business card across the table. Take 2 days. If you're interested, call that number. If not, I appreciate your discretion. He stood, leaving cash on the table for a meal I hadn't even ordered yet. For the record, he added, Marcus was right about one thing. You do clean up nicely. Then he was gone, leaving me with a business card, a racing heart, and a decision that would change everything. I called him the next day. I'm in, I said when Adrian answered, but I have conditions. I'm listening. I need a contract, everything in writing, and if at any point this feels wrong or crosses lines I'm not comfortable with, I can walk away. Agreed. I'll have my lawyer draft something, anything else. Yeah, I took a breath. Why me? I'm sure you could have found someone more polished for this. There was a pause on the other end. When Adrian spoke again, his voice was softer. You have an honest face, Jamie, and there's something about you that feels real. That's what I need them to see. 3 days later, I signed a contract in his lawyer's office. 12,000 deposited in my account that afternoon. I paid my rent, my loans, and stood in my apartment feeling like I just sold something I couldn't quite name. The first event was a charity gala. Adrian sent a stylist to my apartment with options, 3 designer suits, shirts, shoes, everything. I chose a navy suit that fit like it had been made for me because, as the stylist explained, it had been. Adrian picked me up in a car that cost more than my education. He wore black, perfectly tailored, and when his eyes swept over me, something unreadable crossed his face. You look good, he said simply. So do you. The gala was overwhelming. Crystal chandeliers, champagne, people wearing jewelry worth more than my life savings. Adrian kept his hand on the small of my back, guiding me through crowds, introducing me to people whose names I immediately forgot. And this, a woman in diamonds said, Must be the mysterious boyfriend we've heard absolutely nothing about. This is Jamie, Adrian said, and his hand tightened slightly on my waist. Jamie, my Aunt Catherine. Pleasure to meet you, I said, extending my hand. She studied me like Adrian had in the restaurant. How did you two meet? I opened my mouth, but Adrian beat me to it. Coffee shop. He made the best cappuccino I'd ever had. I asked him out right there. It was so close to the truth. I did work at a coffee shop that I almost believed it myself. How romantic, Catherine said, though her eyes said she wasn't convinced. You must bring him to the estate for Sunday dinner. The whole family would love to meet him properly. When she walked away, I exhaled. That was terrifying. You did well. Adrian's thumb traced a small circle on my back, probably unconscious, definitely distracting. Though we should probably coordinate our story better. My apartment tomorrow. We can go over background details, make sure we're consistent. Sounds like a plan. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of champagne and small talk. Adrian was attentive but professional, exactly as promised. But there were moments when he'd lean in to whisper something in my ear, when his hand would settle on my shoulder, when he'd smile at something I said that felt like more than acting. Or maybe I was just really good at lying to myself. Adrian's penthouse was ridiculous. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than cars, art on the walls that I recognized from museums. Coffee, he offered. Please tell me you have a machine I can actually operate. He smiled, a real smile this time, not the polished one he wore for crowds. I have a French press and beans from that shop on Fifth. Will that work? You know the coffee shop on Fifth? I did my research when I hired you. He moved into the kitchen and I followed. You work there Tuesday through Thursday morning shifts. You're studying graphic design at Metro College. Your portfolio focuses on minimalist branding. You live alone, no pets, and according to Marcus, you have terrible taste in movies. That's invasive. That's thorough. If we're going to sell this, I need to know you. Seems like a one-way street. What do I know about you? Adrian poured hot water over coffee grounds, the aroma filling the space between us. What do you want to know? The truth. Why fake this instead of just finding someone real? His jaw tightened. Because real is complicated. Real has expectations and emotions and the potential to derail everything I've built. I can't afford distractions. Sounds lonely. Sounds practical. I accepted the coffee he handed me, our fingers brushing. Is that what you tell yourself? Careful, Jamie. We're supposed to be convincing others, not psychoanalyzing each other. But there was something in his eyes, a crack in the armor just for a second. I'd seen it. We spent the next 2 hours building our cover story. We'd been dating for 4 months. We met when I spilled coffee on him, his idea, surprisingly charming. Our first date was a disaster where we got caught in the rain, my suggestion. We bonded over a shared love of old architecture and bad sci-fi movies, mixing truth with fiction. You're good at this, Adrian said at one point. At lying. At building believable fiction. Maybe you should write instead of design. Maybe you should stop being so closed off, and you wouldn't need to hire boyfriends. He went very still. Then unexpectedly he laughed, a real laugh, warm and genuine. Touché. That night, lying in my apartment, I replayed that laugh in my head and wondered what I'd got myself into. End of part 1. Sunday dinner at the Wolf Estate was like stepping into a period drama. The house was massive, all stone and history, with manicured gardens and actual servants. I'd never felt more out of place in my life. Adrian squeezed my hand as we walked to the door. Remember, he murmured, we're in love. You're nervous because you want them to like you. That's real, use it. Not helping. You'll be fine. The dining room seated 20, though only 8 of us gathered around one end. Adrian's grandfather sat at the head, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, radiating authority. His Aunt Catherine was there, along with his Uncle Robert, a cousin named Elizabeth, and a few others whose relationships I struggled to track. "So, Jamie," Grandfather Wolf said once we'd been served the first course, "Adrian tells me you're an artist." "A designer, sir. Graphic design, branding work mostly." "Fascinating. And how do you find the time to manage a relationship with someone as demanding as my grandson?" It was a test. I could feel Adrian tense beside me. "Adrian makes time," I said carefully. "And when someone matters to you, you find a way to make it work, even if it means late-night phone calls between meetings or stolen moments over coffee." I felt Adrian's hand find mine under the table. "He's clearly smitten," Catherine observed. "Though, Adrian, you've never introduced us to anyone before. This must be serious." "It is," Adrian said, and his voice carried a weight that made me look at him. He was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Jamie is different." The conversation shifted to business, politics, things I had no context for. But Adrian kept his hand in mine the entire meal, his thumb occasionally brushing my knuckles in a gesture that felt less like acting and more like comfort. After dinner, Elizabeth cornered me in the garden. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Is he different with you? Adrian, I mean. He's always been so, controlled, focused, like he's following some predetermined path and refuses to deviate. But tonight he seems almost relaxed." I thought about how to answer that. I think everyone deserves someone who lets them breathe. She smiled. "Good answer. Take care of him, Jamie. He needs it more than he'd ever admit." On the drive home, Adrian was quiet. Finally, I broke the silence. "Did I pass?" "You were perfect." He glanced at me. "Too perfect, maybe. My grandfather is already talking about adding you to the holiday card list." "Is that bad?" "It means they believe it, which is good for the arrangement, but—" "But what?" "He pulled up to my building but didn't unlock the doors." "But nothing. You did exactly what I hired you to do." There was something off in his tone, something I couldn't identify. I reached for the door handle, but his voice stopped me. "Jamie." "Yeah. Thank you for tonight. You made it easier than it should have been." I met his eyes in the dim light of the car. Maybe that's because some of it wasn't as fake as we're pretending. I got out before he could respond, but I felt his gaze on me all the way to my door. The second month brought more events. A company dinner where Adrian's business partners interrogated me about my intentions. A weekend trip to his family's lake house where we had to share a bedroom. He insisted on taking the couch. I barely slept knowing he was 10 feet away. A museum gala where he held me close while we slow danced, and I forgot we were supposed to be acting. But it was the small moments that got to me. The way he started texting me random thoughts throughout the day. How he'd show up at the coffee shop on my shifts, sitting in the corner with his laptop, occasionally looking up to catch my eye. The night he called me at 2 a.m. because he couldn't sleep and just wanted to talk. "This is dangerous," Marcus warned when I told him about the growing, whatever it was. "You're catching feelings for a guy who's literally paying you to pretend." "I know." "Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're forgetting this has an expiration date." He was right. I knew he was right. But knowing something and feeling it are two different things. Then came the night everything shifted. Adrian had invited me to his place for contract review. We were approaching the 3-month mark, and he wanted to discuss extending to 6. I arrived to find him loosening his tie, looking more disheveled than I'd ever seen him. "Rough day?" I asked. "The board is pushing back on the merger. My grandfather is second-guessing my decisions, and my mother called to say she's flying in next week and expects to meet you." He poured himself a scotch. "Want one?" "Sure." We sat on his couch, the city lights sprawling below us. Adrian stared into his glass like it held answers. Can I ask you something personal? I ventured. Haven't we moved past formalities? Why are you really doing this? And don't give me the inheritance line. There's more to it. He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, because it's safer than the alternative. Which is wanting something real and having it destroy everything I've built. He looked at me, and the vulnerability in his eyes stole my breath. My last relationship ended because I chose the company over him. He said I was incapable of putting anything before my ambition. He was probably right. Or maybe he just wasn't the right person. And you think the right person exists? Someone who'd understand the late nights, the constant pressure, the fact that I'll always have one foot in a boardroom. I think the right person wouldn't make you choose. They'd find a way to fit into your life, instead of demanding you rebuild it. Adrian set down his glass and turned to face me fully. Is that what you do? The question hung between us, loaded with meaning we both understood. Adrian, I know this is fake. You're here because I'm paying you. But sometimes when you look at me, I forget that, and that terrifies me. My heart was hammering. Why does it terrify you? Because in 3 months this ends. You go back to your life, I go back to mine, and we pretend none of this meant anything. That's the deal. What if I don't want that deal anymore? The words were out before I could stop them. Adrian stared at me, something raw and desperate flickering across his face. Don't, he whispered. Don't say things like that unless you mean them. What if I do mean them? He reached out, his hand cupping my face with a gentleness that contradicted everything I knew about him. Then we're both in trouble. He kissed me. Not for show, not for an audience, just for us. It was soft at first, questioning, giving me every chance to pull away. But I didn't. I leaned in, my hands finding his shirt, pulling him closer. He made a sound low in his throat, and suddenly the kiss deepened, becoming something desperate and real and terrifying. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against mine. This is a bad idea, he murmured. Terrible idea, I agreed. We should stop. We really should. Neither of us moved. Jamie, I can't promise you anything. My life is complicated and I'm not good at this, at being what someone needs. I'm not asking for promises. I'm just asking you to stop pretending you don't feel this too. His eyes searched mine. Then he kissed me again, and this time there was no hesitation. We ended up tangled on his couch, hands exploring, hearts racing, the line between fake and real obliterated completely. We didn't sleep together that night, not in that way. But we did fall asleep wrapped around each other, and when I woke up to find him watching me with something like wonder in his eyes, I knew we'd crossed a line we couldn't uncross. The next 2 weeks were a study in contradiction. In public, nothing changed. We were still the perfect couple playing our parts flawlessly. But in private, everything was different. Adrian would text me at random hours just to say he was thinking about me. We'd have dinner at his place, and he'd actually cook, the two of us moving around his kitchen like we'd been doing this for years. He started keeping my favorite coffee in his apartment. I left a toothbrush in his bathroom. We'd kiss goodbye like real couples, and the touches that had once been calculated for effect became natural, necessary. But we didn't talk about what any of it meant. You're playing with fire, Marcus said when I finally confessed. He's still paying you, Jamie. This power dynamic is all kinds of messed up. I know. So what are you going to do? I don't know. The answer came in the form of Adrian's mother. Victoria Woolf was elegant, sharp, and saw right through us the moment we met. Lunch was at an exclusive restaurant, just the three of us. She asked pointed questions about our relationship, our future plans, how I felt about the pressure of being with someone in Adrian's position. I answered honestly, maybe too honestly. Because the truth was, I was falling for her son, and pretending otherwise felt impossible. When Adrian excused himself to take a call, Victoria leaned forward. "You love him." It wasn't a question. "I Don't bother lying. I can see it in how you look at him. But here's what I need to know. Are you in this for him or for what he can provide?" The implication stung. "You think I'm using him?" "I think my son is brilliant in business and remarkably naive about people. I also think he's been hurt before, and I won't watch it happen again." "I would never hurt him." "Everyone says that, but love isn't enough, Jamie. Not in Adrian's world. There will always be another merger, another crisis, another reason he has to choose between what he wants and what he needs. Can you live with being second?" The question rattled around in my head long after lunch ended. Adrian asked if I was okay, and I said yes, but we both knew it was a lie. That night, alone in my apartment, I looked at the contract I'd signed. 1 more month. Then I'd get the rest of my payment and this would be over. Unless I chose to make it real. But could I? Could I be with someone whose life was so different from mine, who might always have one foot out the door? Could I trust that what we had wasn't just an elaborate extension of the performance we'd started? My phone buzzed. "Adrian. Can't sleep thinking about you." My heart squeezed. "Same. Come over." I grabbed my keys. I found Adrian on his balcony, city lights painting him in shadows and gold. He turned when he heard me, and the relief on his face did something to my chest. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey yourself." He pulled me into his arms, and for a moment we just stood there, holding each other like we were afraid to let go. "My mother got to you," he said finally. "She's protective. She's terrified I'm going to screw this up." He pulled back to look at me. "She's not wrong." "Adrian." "No, let me say this." He took a breath. "When I hired you, this was supposed to be simple, a transaction, but you walked into my life and turned everything upside down, and I don't know how to handle that." "You think I do? I'm falling for someone who's paying me to be with him. That's not exactly straightforward either." "Then let's make it straightforward." He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, pulling up his banking app. "There. Contract payment transferred in full. We're done. No more arrangement, no more pretending." I stared at the screen showing the deposit. "What are you doing?" "I'm ending the contract, right now, so that what happens next is just about us, not about money or obligations or anything else." His eyes met mine, vulnerable and determined. "I'm falling for you too, Jamie. Maybe I have been since that first dinner, and I need to know if what you feel is real or if it's just been a really convincing performance." My breath caught. "You're serious?" "Completely. So I'm asking you, no contract, no payment, no pretense. Do you want this? Do you want me?" Everything Victoria had said echoed in my mind. The complications, the challenges, the reality that Adrian's life would always be demanding and complex. But I looked at this man, this brilliant, guarded, secretly soft man who made me coffee the way I liked it and called me at 2 a.m. just to hear my voice. And the answer was simple. "Yes," I said, "I want this, I want you." The kiss he gave me was different from all the others. It was a promise, a beginning, something true and terrifying and absolutely right. We made love that night, finally, and it was nothing like the careful performance we'd maintained for months. It was real, messy and perfect and overwhelming in the best way. Afterward, tangled in his sheets, Adrian traced patterns on my shoulder. "So what now?" I asked. "Now we do this for real. You, me, figuring out how to make this work. No scripts, no audiences, just us. Your family is going to have questions. Let them question. You're not my fake boyfriend anymore, Jamie. You're just mine if you want to be." I turned to face him. "I want to be." He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that I'd seen so few times but had come to treasure. "Good, because I'm not letting you go." End of part 2. Dating Adrian Wolf without a contract was both easier and harder than I'd imagined. Easier because we didn't have to calculate every touch, every word. We could just be ourselves, staying in on Friday nights with takeout and bad movies, having arguments about stupid things like whether pineapple belonged on pizza. It didn't, despite Adrian's insistence otherwise. Learning each other's rhythms and quirks without an expiration date hanging over us. Harder because reality came with complications the arrangement had conveniently avoided. Like the night I had a major project due and couldn't make his company fundraiser. He said he understood, but I saw the disappointment flicker across his face before he masked it. Or when paparazzi caught us leaving a restaurant and suddenly, my face was on gossip blogs with headlines like Tech Air's Mystery Man, and strangers were commenting on everything from my clothes to my background. Or the morning I woke up in his penthouse and felt the gap between our lives like a physical thing. His world of private jets and board meetings, my world of student loans and coffee shop shifts. "You're thinking too loud," Adrian murmured, pulling me closer. "I can hear it from here. Just wondering if I fit in your life." "You are my life," he kissed my temple. "Everything else is just details." But details mattered. His mother still watched me with cautious approval, clearly waiting for me to prove myself. His grandfather asked pointed questions about my prospects and long-term plans. His business partners sized me up at every event, trying to determine if I was worthy of his time. The breaking point came at a charity gala, 3 months into our real relationship. I'd been cornered by a woman named Sophia, old money, perfect pedigree, the kind of person who belonged in Adrian's world. She smiled at me with venom in her eyes. "You're the boyfriend," she said, "the one from the coffee shop." "That's me." How quaint. Adrian must find it refreshing to slum it with the working class. I felt my jaw tighten. "If you have something to say." "I'm just wondering how long it'll last. Men like Adrian don't end up with men like you. Not permanently. Eventually, he'll need someone who understands his world, someone who can actually contribute to his legacy. And then where will you be?" Before I could respond, Adrian appeared at my side, his hand settling possessively on my waist. "Sophia," he said coldly, "I see you've met Jamie." "We were just chatting." "Let me be clear. Jamie contributes more to my life than you could possibly understand. And if you speak to him like that again, you'll find yourself removed from every guest list that matters in this city. Are we understood?" Sophia paled. "I didn't mean." "We're done here." He guided me away, his body radiating tension. "You didn't have to do that," I said quietly. "Yes, I did. Nobody talks to you like that." He stopped, turning to face me. "Jamie, I need you to understand something. I don't care where you came from or what you do for work or any of the superficial bullshit these people obsess over. You make me happy. You make me want to be better. That's what matters. But your world, my world can adjust, or it can deal with the fact that I'm choosing you." The fierce certainty in his voice broke something open in my chest. The real test came when my final projects were due. I'd been working myself to exhaustion, balancing school with my relationship with Adrian, trying to prove I could do both. Adrian tried to be supportive. He'd send food when I was pulling all-nighters, text encouragement, give me space when I needed it. But I could see the frustration growing. The missed dinners, the postponed plans, the nights I chose my laptop over his bed. It came to a head one Thursday night. I'd promised to attend his grandfather's birthday celebration, but my professor had moved up a critical deadline. I called Adrian from my apartment, surrounded by half-finished designs. "I can't make it tonight." Silence on the other end. Then, "This is the third event you've canceled. I know and I'm sorry, but this deadline is more important than my family meeting the person I'm in a relationship with." "That's not fair." "Isn't it, Jamie? I rearranged my entire schedule to be there for your gallery showing last month. I've shown up for you, but every time I need you, there's an excuse. It's not an excuse, it's my education, my future. And what about our future? The question hung between us, heavy and accusatory. What do you want me to say? I asked, frustration bleeding into my voice. That I'll drop everything whenever you need me, that your world is more important than mine. I want you to act like this relationship matters to you. It does matter, but so does finishing school, so does building my own career instead of just being Adrian Wolf's boyfriend. I heard him take a sharp breath. Is that what you think this is? That you're just an accessory to my life? Sometimes it feels like it. Everyone sees me as your plus one, not as my own person. And maybe that was fine when it was fake, but now I need to know I'm more than just the guy who makes you look good at parties. Jamie, I have to go, I have work to do. I hung up before he could respond, then immediately wanted to call him back. But pride or fear or exhaustion kept me frozen. I didn't hear from him for 2 days. Marcus found me on day 3, staring at my phone in the coffee shop. You look like hell, he observed. Feel like it too. Call him. He could call me. You're both idiots. Marcus sat down across from me. You know what I see? 2 people who love each other but are scared of what that means. You're afraid of losing yourself in his world, he's afraid of losing you to yours. But you're so busy protecting yourselves that you're forgetting to actually be together. When did you get wise? I've always been wise, you just don't listen. He pushed my phone toward me. Call him, apologize, talk it out like adults, or you can sit here and let the best thing that ever happened to you slip away out of stubbornness. He was right, of course he was right. I called Adrian. Jamie, his voice was rough like he hadn't been sleeping either. Can we talk in person? I'm at the office, but I can be at your place in 20 minutes. I'll be here. When Adrian arrived, he looked as wrecked as I felt. We stood in my tiny apartment, this space that suddenly felt too small for everything we needed to say. I'm sorry, we both said simultaneously. Despite everything, I smiled, so did he. You first, Adrian said. I'm sorry for making you feel like you're not a priority. You are. But I'm also scared that if I don't finish school, don't build my own career, I'll always be dependent on you. That I'll lose myself trying to fit into your world. Adrian stepped closer. And I'm sorry for making you feel like you have to choose. The truth is, I'm terrified too. Terrified that you'll wake up one day and realize my life is too much, too public, too demanding, too complicated. That you'll leave like everyone else who couldn't handle it. I'm not everyone else. I know, but that fear is still there. He reached out, taking my hands. My ex was right about one thing, I do put my work first. It's a habit, a defense mechanism. But with you, I want to be different. I want to find balance. I just don't always know how. Then we figure it out together, I said. But that means you have to trust that I can handle your world, and I have to trust that you won't consume mine. I can do that. He pulled me closer. I don't want to change you, Jamie. I fell for the guy who argues about design theory and makes terrible puns and looks at the world differently than anyone in my life. I need you to keep being that person. Even when it means missing galas. Even then, we'll find compromise. Maybe I don't need you at every event. Maybe I can learn to exist in your world too. He smiled softly. I've never actually been to a student art show before, or hung out in a coffee shop just because. Maybe it's time I expanded my horizons. I kissed him then, soft and sweet and full of promise. I love you, I whispered against his lips. I should have said it before, but I was scared. I love you, Adrian. His arms tightened around me. I love you too, so much it terrifies me. Good, we can be terrified together. We spent that night talking, really talking. about expectations and boundaries and how to build a relationship that honored both our lives. It wasn't all resolved in one conversation, but it was a start. And when Adrian left the next morning to make his meeting, he paused at the door. "Come to Sunday dinner. With your family. They miss you. Apparently, you're the only one who laughs at my grandfather's terrible jokes." "They're not terrible, they're dad jokes. There's a difference." He kissed me once more. "See you Sunday." "I'll be there." The months that followed were far from perfect. We still argued about time management, about priorities, about whose turn it was to pick the movie. But we also learned. Adrian started leaving work early on Thursdays to have dinner at my place. I made an effort to attend the events that really mattered to him. We created a shared calendar, color-coded and probably ridiculous, but it helped us see where we could fit into each other's lives. He came to my graduation, sitting in the audience with a bouquet of flowers and pride written all over his face. When I walked across that stage, I saw him stand, clapping harder than anyone else there. "I'm so proud of you," he said afterward, pulling me into a kiss despite the crowd of families around us. "Thanks for being here. I wouldn't be anywhere else." I started working as a junior designer at a small but prestigious firm. It meant long hours sometimes, but Adrian understood. And on the nights we were both swamped, we'd video call, working in comfortable silence, just being together even when we couldn't be in the same room. His family came around too. His grandfather cornered me at Christmas dinner. "You're good for him," he said gruffly. "He smiles more, laughs more, seems lighter." "He's good for me too. Don't hurt him." "I won't, I promise." The old man nodded. "Good, because if you do, contract or not, I'll make your life very difficult." But his eyes were twinkling, and I knew it came from a place of love. One year after we made it real, Adrian took me back to the restaurant where we'd first met to discuss the arrangement. "Feeling nostalgic?" I asked as we sat down. "Something like that." He seemed nervous, which was unusual. Adrian was many things, but nervous wasn't typically one of them. "What's going on? Do you remember what you said to me that night, about needing everything in writing?" "Yeah, why?" He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small box. My heart stopped. "I'm not great with spontaneity," he said, opening the box to reveal two simple platinum bands. "I prefer contracts, agreements, clear terms. So here are mine. I want forever with you. I want mornings where we fight over coffee and evenings where we collapse on the couch. I want to support your dreams and have you challenge mine. I want to build a life that's ours, not just mine or yours, but something we create together." Tears were blurring my vision. "Adrian, I'm not done. I want to argue about movie choices and compromise on vacation destinations. I want your terrible puns and your brilliant mind and your honest heart. I want everything, Jamie, if you'll have me." "Yes," I managed. "God, yes." He slipped the ring onto my finger, his hands shaking slightly. I pulled him into a kiss that tasted like tears and laughter and everything right in the world. "I love you," I said, "even when you're impossible." "Especially when I'm impossible," he corrected with a smile. "Especially then," I agreed. 2 years later. The apartment we bought together was a compromise, not as massive as Adrian's penthouse, not as cramped as my old place. It had a view of the city, a studio space for my design work, and a home office for Adrian's endless conference calls. It was perfect. I was working on a branding pitch when Adrian came home, loosening his tie in that way that still made my stomach flip. "How was your day?" he asked, kissing the top of my head. "Good, landed the Morrison account. You?" "Board meeting ran long, but we finalized the merger." He paused. "I told them I'm taking 2 weeks off next month for our honeymoon." We'd gotten married 6 months ago in a small ceremony with close family and friends. Nothing huge, nothing elaborate, just us, making promises we intended to keep. Where are we going again? I'm not telling you, it's a surprise. I hate surprises. You love my surprises. He pulled me up from my desk and into his arms. Admit it. I pretended to consider, only because you're cute. Just cute. And incredibly annoying. Better, he kissed me slow and deep. I love you. Love you too. It was simple, domestic, ordinary. Everything the fake arrangement had never been meant to become. And it was absolutely perfect. Sometimes I thought about that pink eviction notice, the desperation that had led me to accept $25,000 to pretend to be someone's boyfriend. I thought about how Marcus had called it an opportunity from a strange place. He'd been right. Because pretending to love Adrian Wolfe had led me to the real thing, messy and complicated and challenging, and absolutely worth every moment. They say everyone has a price. Mine bought me something I never expected, a future I didn't know I wanted, with a man I couldn't imagine living without. And if that wasn't a love story worth telling, I didn't know what was.